Sean Sewell with Engearment.com podcast. Very honored, very grateful, and very stoked to have back on for the second time my mentor to a lot of you out there, Brett Jones. Welcome back, Brett.
Sean, great to be on again. Just wonderful to have the chance to talk to you and your audience again.
Well, we all appreciate that. The last episode was a bunch of wisdom. We covered a lot of great territory, and I had 4 pages of notes just from the last one. I have 2 pages of notes going into this one, and I'm sure I'll miss it. And our friend Sven will pick up the notes for us and help us out. Sven, congrats to you too, man. You're an awesome person.
Absolutely.
Well, wonderful.
Just don't make him angry.
Don't make the German angry. No. I don't know how you could. He's the nicest guy I've ever met, at least virtually. Just
totally inside joke. And I know somewhere in Germany, there's a very large, strong guy laughing at the term Lufthansa. So that's a joke for Sven. So
perfect. Well, he'll appreciate that. Oh, this is good. Well, brief recap. On the first episode, we went into Brett's history. Correct me if I'm wrong, but 19 years of teaching with Pavel. Is that correct as of this year?
18.
18. In 19, working with the kettlebell.
Yes. So my old Yeller, the kettlebell from some of my Instagram videos, is turning 20 this year. So I received that kettlebell in late 2001. I got certified with Pavel in February of 2002, his second ever cert. And then I was invited to start teaching with him in April of 2003.
Wow.
So kind of, and I love to fast forward because saying 20 years sounds way better than 19, and saying 19 sounds better than 18, but those are the dates.
Well, you're OG, like original certificate. You can say whatever you want to say.
Which means that term is no longer cool, and they will come out with some other term for that.
I'm sure they have, Brett. And if we don't know about it, they're all happy about that. That's great. So there's been quite a bit of evolution with teaching kettlebells and coaching and being a leader, director of education with StrongFirst. And what are some of your favorite progressions or adaptations? I know the revisions on the SFG manual are up in the 20s now, right?
Yeah, I think we're on about the 33rd edition total.
Wow.
So it's been, Pavel. Did you see I'm sure you saw the Alex Honnold, the free solo?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So good enough isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of the mantra within progressing the curriculum. Good enough isn't. How can we do it better? How can we do it in fewer steps? What's the next progression? You're going to see some changes in the snatch progression coming up based off of some work that I've done with Tim Almond.
Yes.
And, we're always just seeking that little bit better path, that better cue, a tip, drill, or technique that can move us forward. Still teaching the same basic 6 at the level 1. We're not changing exercises. We are an inch wide, mile deep.
Very much. Well, I'm excited about the new snatch. Doc Hartle mentioned that as well, and Sven did too. Yeah, I'd love to learn that new technique. And it's a testament to you guys always evolving and finding best practices and then teaching those best practices so us in the field can help other people be more effective and safer.
Yes. So always the goal is to, and that's kind of the difference in being an instructor certification. And we're intent on doing better all the time for our instructors. And that's, like we just talked about, I've been teaching with Pavel for quite a few years, and that's always been the drive. And, the very early certifications, we would spend sometimes 4 to 6 hours on the first day just getting people's hips open enough to where they could swing and squat effectively. Yeah. And so that's, fast forward quite a few years. And now people come in, and it's rare to find somebody who can't squat pretty much rock bottom and hasn't achieved some sort of progression and that they're more prepared, more ready to take on the challenge. And so I'm going to give us and give Pavel a lot of credit within that category that, we had an influence.
Yeah. Oh, it's wonderful. And I learned from you in 17, and I actually picked up my 36 kilo in honor of you at that cert, thanks to you. And
Awesome.
I love it. And it's always inspiring every certification we go to, and the revisions, the new coaching techniques, the professionalism. And if I'm pitching StrongFirst, I am pitching StrongFirst because I recommend to anybody out there who takes education and coaching seriously, not even if you're going to be a fitness professional, but just for your own best practices or for your family's best practices. It's the best school out there.
Well, thank you. And it's wonderful not only to have you part of the community and part of our cadre, but to have the chance to speak about it in forums like this is always a great opportunity. And we're quiet professionals, but we're also not afraid to say we're pretty good at this.
Refined. We've been doing this for a long time. Sure. Well, here's a deep question for you. We talked about in the last podcast your path, but what drew you to health, wellness, and fitness in the first place?
So a couple of things. Number one, I had a great example from my father. At a certain point, my dad quit smoking, gained weight, and then decided that he was going to get fit. And part of that was getting up 4:45, 5 o'clock in the morning, going to the gym, running, lifting weights. Has a guy that he's a friend of his that he's been training with for the last 40 years, 45 years. So, they've, and obviously that's morphed over the years. My dad's going to be 75, 76 this year. I think it's always funny that I can't pin down the exact year. I'm close, 75, 76. And he has some orthopedic issues and some things like that, but still gets out, hikes, trains on his own at the house, and obviously with pandemic and things like that. So I just had a great example from my dad. And then I wrestled in junior high and high school, and that certainly kicked off an interest in strength training and fitness and things of that nature. Went to school for sports medicine, athletic training, keeping me kind of around athletics and things like that. Of course, it also meant that I was too busy doing other things to take care of my own training. The great excuse. Yeah. And, kind of came back to it. I like to say I've gained and lost the same 20 pounds quite a few times over the years. And, I would take on some sort of fitness avenue, get busy, lose it, and then when I finally transitioned really into the fitness industry for profession from athletic training, which would have been 97, I obviously got pretty serious about it. By the time I heard about Pavel and decided to take on the certification in February of 2002, I had been training pretty well for a few years there. And so it's just kind of this, it was always kind of headed that direction, so to speak. And like I said, I just had some great examples from my father and from, wrestling and being around athletics and things of that nature.
Oh, that's great. I love that. So your father set a great example for you to pursue. That's awesome.
Yes.
And look at you now. Very involved in the community. Very.
Rather. But that's been, years ago, I felt kind of funny saying, in the kettlebell community, mm-hmm. But I don't feel funny saying that anymore. I mean, like I said, we're, close to 20 years down the road, and it's the community aspect is something that's always been attractive to me, and something that has been very, very interesting. People enter this community, they change their careers, they become trainers because they have this experience with the kettlebell and with StrongFirst and with Pavel, and so that's a powerful thing. Mm-hmm. And we have some high standards and expectations. We have very few rites of passage in our society nowadays. They're just not around. I don't want to go down the participation trophy road,
Yeah.
but we just don't have a lot of rites of passage, at least positive rites of passage. And we still have that. We still expect a certain level of performance, and that I think that sets us apart and provides an experience that people lack generally in their daily lives.
Yeah, that's well stated. And you're right. I've gone through a lot of certifications, and a lot of them simply by showing up or testing out in a written test or something, you qualify. But with StrongFirst, there are strict, and there's a worksheet. They're strict, and you have a lot of eyes on you. Not just one person, you've got a lot of eyes on you, and it's to your benefit. It's not just, like you said, a rite of passage, but you want to be coached by the best to be the best version of yourself to help other people.
Definitely. One of our principles and one of the things we teach is safety is part of proper performance. And so in order to do that, we check to make sure that the person in front of us can execute the drill to a certain standard. Obviously, that blueprint looks different on different individuals, right? I had a famous coach tell me in reference to powerlifting one time that I'm not built to do anything. And what he meant was, I'm not built to specialize in any one thing. I don't have long arms, short torso that would move me towards deadlifting being advantageous. My arms are not, so they're not long enough for deadlifting, but they're too long for benching. And I just kind of have this general frame. And I think my results in powerlifting, some of the things I've done in my life would kind of bear that out. So that blueprint that we have for what a passing swing looks like, obviously that can look different depending on the individual. So we do have a good bit of individualization within the standards. We don't want to lose the student in the standards, but that, equal to that, if not above it, is the ability to coach it. And so over the course of the certification weekend, you're working with your team, you're working with your partners, and you're coaching, you're learning, you're getting your coach's eye to spot things. And that's quick side note. I found, and over the years, there's an old saying, in the amateur's mind, there are many options, in the expert's mind, there are few. And I've kind of come down that path myself, and believe me, I'm not an expert. An X is a has been, and a spurt was a one-time event. So, I'm not going to go down that path. I'm still learning, growing, developing, and myself. But online, lots of people asking for, check my form, do this. I will usually try to spot one thing, maybe two. And I will try to give as simple a cue as I can give. For example, stand up tall at the finish of your swing. How tall are you? 6 foot. Be 6 foot at the finish of your swing. Simple, direct cues versus and I've done this in the past. Oh, yeah. I've come through the overanalyzation and the spotting the 10 things, and hopefully I've come to the point where the one thing that will lead to a lot of other change and something simple for someone to focus on is where we want to go as instructors, where I try to go. And so online, it's very funny. I will respond to somebody's request for help, and I will give a cue or a thing to change. And I think it confuses people. I think they're expecting the testing standard sheet to be brought out. Just somebody asking for help on the internet. So,
oh, I love it. And it's so true. And I think anybody listening to this who is a coach, sometimes less is more. Just like you said, that one cue, that one coaching bit, and especially not when they're actually doing the exercise, right? But like, break it down. What's that one thing that'll improve them the most bang for the buck? And you're really good. I actually learned that from you, like you. I used to verbal diarrhea, just go through the checklist of stuff, and you watch people just glaze over.
Yeah.
And so it takes a really good coach like yourself, like to have that coach's eye, see that minutia, tweak it, get better.
Yeah, catch at certs, and from a teaching perspective, I think of it as upriver and downriver sort of conversations. You might be catching the effect, the downriver, but can you spot the cause? What's coming from upriver? And that is a key thing as an instructor, because it's one thing to spot the the effect, the downriver thing that you see, but you got to be able to find the upriver cause, and getting to the cause, you can fix 3 other things that are down the river. And so that's the focus as an instructor, and where we want to develop that coach's eye and be able to see that X is happening, but I need to fix Y.
Ooh, that's a good segue. Is this where something like the FMS would be applicable to find?
100%.
Cool.
100%. Clear the baseline.
Mm-hmm.
Quite simply, do you move well enough to have a positive response to the things I'm going to ask you to do? That's number one. And I think if everybody sits there, and I've had a couple different conversations on this over the last couple months, I think if everybody sits there and thinks of a time when they tried to get fit, and for those of you not watching on video, I just did air quotes. So I'm a big air quotes guy, so you're going to see this a few times. So think about one of those times that you tried to get fit and you stopped for whatever reason. Didn't feel good, achy knee, sore back, just weren't enjoying what you were doing. Mm-hmm. That may be because you didn't clear the baseline. You were taking on something that required ankle mobility, and you don't have mobile ankles. So finding that at the start, mobilizing those ankles, and then going into those activities and things that require good ankle mobility, much better pathway. So rather than watching somebody perform, and then trying to decide, seeing something wrong, and quotation marks around wrong. I know that's a tough term nowadays.
Yeah.
Seeing something wrong and then trying to say, well, is it a technique issue? Is it a movement issue? Well, let's just take the movement issues off the table. Let's just make sure you clear a baseline. And so that's where I really focus on that. And, I have a relatively new student who, a little while back, he sends me an email and he says, just so we're clear, I hate everything you're having me do. And I'm like, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, you need it
because I know the direction we're going. I see the results. I saw the change and where we're headed. Well, not 2 weeks later, he sent me another email and was like, what have you done to me? Like, I feel great. Everything's progressing. We're definitely, wow, this is amazing. And I'm like, yep. And remember, 2 weeks ago, you hated everything I was having you do. And so, and that's human nature, right? Yeah. We love to focus on things we're good at. We don't like to confront things we're not good at. But that's where the benefits are going to be, and clearing that baseline and moving forward.
I love it. That's great. To speak to that in a lot of detail as well, I start working with people and they're like, why are we doing these things I don't like to do? Like you said, because you need to. And the next thing you know, and I love these kind of testimonies like your new person has. My person hasn't taken NSAIDs in 6 weeks. We've worked together for 7 weeks. And I'm like, perfect. Movement first. Just move well, right? Good patterns.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Makes a huge difference. Yeah. And instead of assuming, check it. Mm-hmm. Pretty simple, I think.
Yeah, same simple. That's how we get jobs doing this. This is great. And you touched on this a little bit too on great show, Chris and Mike's show. Fantastic podcast. Check it out. And you were on there. It was Breakthrough Secrets. Is that the name?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Chris and Mike, great job with what you're doing over there. And in that, you brought up a really good topic of getting really good with a lighter weight. Because I know a lot of people want to keep progressing, but you brought up a really good point, and it made me think a lot about when I get injured, and I should have listened to his advice years ago, is the tissue adaptation takes longer than the strength adaptation because it's more neurological, right?
Correct. Especially when we're starting into a new activity, new exercise, things of that nature, those neurological adaptations will outpace tissue adaptation. And I've experienced this several times over the last few years, right? Because I am not a garage kept single owner that was only driven to church. I have accumulated mileage on the chassis, most recently with cancer diagnosis and treatment, and coming up on a year actually since the end of treatment. We're past a year since diagnosis and coming up on a year since the end of treatment, and you keep collecting those anniversaries and knocking down those milestones. But in restarting And we may have talked about this on a previous podcast, and or somebody's heard me mention it before, but I lost over 40 pounds in the course of treatment. I really, the end of the 7 weeks of treatment and the upwards of 10 weeks after were rough. It was, I tend to minimize and say, oh yeah, it was a journey. It was rough. Yeah. It was hard. And in restarting my training, I understand strength. I understand tension techniques. I have a background and an ability to produce force. And especially coming out of an experience like that, where I was very worn down, degraded, wasted away. I could neurologically, mentally, I could produce more force than I could handle. And so I really had to, and shout out to my wife, who knows this about me and said, don't lift more than this. And I listened and, rebuilt my strength over a period of time, to the point now where I'm almost back to pre-treatment strength levels, and feeling very good, and holding a steady weight, and all of those things. And so, yeah, it's kind of a well-established thing that the first 6 to 8 weeks of a strength training program, your adaptations are going to be primarily neurological. You're learning to coordinate the muscles better. You're firing better. You're able to, it's like learning how to drive a stick, right? You go from jerking back and forth and making everybody's neck sore in the car, to driving with some skill. I like to think I'm progressing towards being that Formula One driver, where you don't feel the gears shift, you just go faster, right? So there's no, you're not getting jerked when it's just, you just accelerate. That's kind of how I like to think of my strength training, is I'm training to be that Formula One driver with those really smooth transitions between gears. And so that continued neurological progression will, I think, outpace the tissue adaptations. Ligaments, tendons, muscles adapt fairly quickly. Ligaments and tendons tend to take a little bit longer to come along for the ride. But just pacing that and understanding, and people have this experience all the time. They train at a light weight for whatever reason, and then they step into something they used to do, and they can do it, or even better. They're above a previous PR, and they haven't lifted anything close to that. And there's this mental shift that goes, oh, I'm done with that. I'm just going to do this, the new heavy thing. And I'm not going, well, what got you there?
Yeah.
What got you there was this really good, solid training. So not that it has to always be that, but it can't always be the heavy thing either. I do a lot of my training right now with about a 36 or 40 kilo load, but I do just as many sessions with a 24 or 32.
Gotcha.
So I vary that load. I have days where I'm just going to knock out some 24 kilo snatches. I can snatch the 32. I can snatch the 36. I can also get a great session in with the 24.
Absolutely.
And so that, obviously that bleeds into about 5 different training conversations, and waiving the load and respecting, the need to have those variations, because that's human adaptation.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Waiving the load, obviously. And it's cool to hear your weights you're using is inspiring to me, because I'm not at the level you're at. And you post, and everybody can see this publicly on your Instagram handle, I think daily, right? Every session you're doing.
No, it varies. But if I train, I put up a video.
And it's inspiring. When I'm lacking, whatever it is I'm lacking to do my training session, I watch Brett. I'm like, all right, I'm going after it, Brett. That's inspiring.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And I have intention of doing a little more, informational sort of things. But I think it's also important just to put myself out there. Yeah.
it helps a lot of us. I mean, seriously, I know a lot of people, even in our Denver area, that refer to you for inspiration, motivation, technique. So that's appreciated.
Thank you.
In that last conversation, we have a few different directions we can approach, and I want to approach all three. We spoke in the summer. It was a few weeks before you got your test results back from your cancer. And since then, can we talk about obviously the results and potentially anything you might have learned that might apply to other people going through cancer or other tough situations?
Absolutely. So yeah, I think it was August that I had my first follow-up scans, and the type of treatment that I had, which was 7 weeks, 5 days a week radiation. I was supposed to have 3 chemo treatments. I made it through 2 of them. I was in the room getting ready for the 3rd infusion, and my doc walks in and she takes one look at me and she goes, "We're not doing this to you today because you're going to get worse like this, and you're already bad." And I'm like, "Thanks."
Yeah.
And I meant it. Like, it wasn't one of those like, "Gee, thanks, doc." It was a thank you so much, because I was at a pretty low point. The pain, the radiation, the side effects, it was pretty bad. So they wait 6 months past the end of treatment. 6 months, 3 months, 3 months. I don't know. Yeah. Now it's all fuzzy. It'll come back to me. But you wait that long because the radiation is still active for an extended period of time after treatment. And so if you do it too soon, you get false negatives, you get false positives, and it just doesn't work out well. So they did the follow-up PET scan. Everything looked fantastic, looked really good. I have had another set of a CT scan and MRI 3 months after that, which then put me into a 6-month rotation. I have my next follow-up scans beginning of May, actually. It's here in a couple weeks. We seem to be on a rotation of coming prior to my my scans. And right now I am considered NED, no evidence of disease.
Yes.
And so treatment was very successful. With this type of cancer, so I had a primary tonsillar squamous cell carcinoma. I also have a history of a melanoma, which I'm now 5 years past finding that and having that removed. At that time, I didn't have to have any additional treatment. It was just surgical remove. They did a central node biopsy, no spread. So just kind of move forward from that. And with this one, 1 year is a big deal. 2 years a bigger deal. If this cancer is going to come back, it'll usually do it within the first 2 years. And so coming up on a year, got my follow-up scans coming up, and you keep knocking down anniversaries, milestones, and keep moving forward. And I think there's a few different directions we could take as far as the lessons learned and things that might benefit others. I think that in some ways I'm a really bad example. I have a friend of mine, he's been open about it. Mike Perry's beginning his cancer journey. He was diagnosed with colon cancer and starting chemo tomorrow, actually. And so I very much, my attitude, doc, I wake up from surgery for my biopsy, doc says you've got cancer. Tears. I certainly had a reaction, but I very quickly switched to what's the next step? Mm-hmm. So you take this gut punch of this diagnosis, and that gut punch can come in a million different forms, right? It can be an illness. It can be the loss of a loved one. It can be a job. I mean, there's a million different ways that gut punch can come along. And you certainly need to take that moment to let that gut punch settle in. And which is funny, because I realize, looking back, in prior to having had cancer, I look back at times where somebody revealed that they had cancer, and I said some pretty stupid things from a place of a good heart and a good, well-intentioned statement, but they weren't smart things to say. And so when people hear someone say they have cancer, their immediate reaction is, well, my brother's cousin's uncle had that and they're doing fine now. And you're going to this and you're going to that. And yeah, you just took the gut punch of your life. Yeah. You're not in the place to receive a positive message. You'll get there. Mm-hmm. Acknowledging the gut punch is a way better strategy, in my opinion.
I would agree. Yeah.
And so, moving forward, I pretty much make a pretty quick switch in my life to what's the next step. And once I've identified the next step, I focus and I take the next step and the next step and the next step. It's a little bit like The Martian, when the movie, which I've only seen about 20 times. And, Matt Damon has a scene at the end where he's like, you solve the next problem. And if you solve enough problems, you get to come home. Well, you take the next step and you keep taking steps. And if you keep taking steps, you get to come home. And so I think that from a persistence standpoint, which I've always felt was one of the most important capacities and qualities for someone to have. I think persistence is yet again proven to be that most important quality. So I'll stop.
That was very helpful. Thank you for being open about that. And you're right. I've been in the caretaker role. We talk about this on and off record, and you've been a very big support in my life as well. And I appreciate you for that. Getting that gut punch, like both parents pancreatic cancer, my sister brain cancer. And like, you take that, you're like, boy, this is unpleasant. But then like you let it sit in, and then what's the next step? Is there a next step, or do we need to go into palliative, or like, what is the next step? And just keep moving forward. And thank you for being open about that. It is. I'll reach out to Mike Perry as well, to wish him the best. But yeah, and also a person who's not gone through something like this before, and like you and myself, before I had gone through this, I didn't know what to say. You say something positive and uplifting out of a good place, right? Not malicious. You just try and be supportive. But now that you've been through it in a big way, and you've been open about sharing it, it's been very helpful and inspiring to a lot of people. So I greatly appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And anniversaries, collecting the anniversaries. That's
awesome. That's a big one as you move forward.
Yes, it is. Well, speaking of moving forward, you got your second shot. I'm getting my second shot, my wife and I, here in a few weeks. Moving forward as a society, I'm so excited. One of my favorite things is going to be getting to host and attend courses. Do you have anything on your calendar, or what are you looking forward to participating, to coaching, leading?
All of the above.
100%.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a 4-hour foundations course coming up here in Pittsburgh on May 16th. So I'm looking forward to, we'll be the gym that we're holding it at, and since we're an educational event and the things that we're doing, we will be masked, will be appropriate. The gym has passed all of their safety inspections with flying colors, and they've got it nailed down. They're doing a great job. It's faster in Pittsburgh. And, so I'm really looking forward to that. I like teaching. I like being up in front of people. I like teaching. And I'm really looking forward to that. Supposed to be in Costa Rica in beginning of July. Not sure where that one's going to be, because CDC keeps saying, don't travel internationally. And so we'll see what happens with that. And then I'm supposed to be in France in November. And I'm looking forward to teaching, to being up in front of folks again. And I have discovered over the last year of not traveling, now well over a year and a half of not traveling, year and third. Anyway, that my OCD does kick in at a certain point. Like that was the wrong number. 42. The answer is 42. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I have my towel right over here. And so the, I don't like traveling. Post treatment and everything and getting to work out again. I've been more consistent on a training routine than I've been able to be in the last close to 20 years. Because, I started traveling and teaching in 2003, and that kicked in hardcore in about 2005, 2006. And from 2006 for about 7 years, I was knocking down 30 plus trips a year. And then beyond that, I scaled back to 24 or 25 trips a year. And so I've accumulated a good number of miles over the years, and travel was not fun. And it knocks you out of your routine. And I used to wonder what people were talking about when they're like routine. I'm like, routine? Like my routine is home, travel, home, travel, home, travel, home, travel. Good luck sticking to a routine. And now that I've had the chance, man, I got to say, I like having a routine.
Yeah, it's great to have a routine.
Yeah.
That's a lot of travel too. And I think we talked about this on the last podcast about people being working from home a whole lot more, like a lot more, and more consistency and a lot more personal records, right? Like, because you're consistent with the training. My fridge is just right there. I can make a nice meal. I don't have to go somewhere. And our dogs have a new routine, and I have a new routine. My wife has a new routine. She's on the other side of the wall right now, working her HR job, and there's been a lot of things positive about the whole COVID situation, which sounds weird to say, I know, but there's plenty of like your positives, like consistency, and you're putting up these consistent videos of your progress that inspire other people. And we're all making the most of this. And also this more virtual connection too, like doing this podcast has been a lifesaver for me personally. I get to talk to friends, I get to talk to mentors, and you get to share these messages that help people and help them feel like they belong to a bigger community, which I think we all want to feel part of a community. And even virtually, it's still pretty dang effective.
Well, I get confused now when I'm on an audio phone call. I don't know. I don't know how to have audio phone calls. I'm like, where are you? I can't see you. So I've gotten very used to and I was offering, we had talked about this for a second before we started the podcast. I started offering online training many years ago. Mm-hmm. And I actually tried to do it initially when I moved from San Diego back to Pittsburgh. And at that time, the video options were not great. Yeah. They weren't solid. Fast forward a few years, video options became much better. And so my opportunity to coach and teach and cue and do things virtually took that jump forward with the technology. And so I thought it was funny years ago when certain pundits would say, poo-poo online training and how poor it was. And then they were coming out with products on how to do online training within a couple months of the pandemic. And so, which kudos for making a quick pivot and getting some information out there. But yeah, I think the ability to connect, we are very visual. We are just being able to see the facial expressions, the intonations, things of that nature. So much of communication is nonverbal, and this helps fill in that gap. It doesn't fully fill it in. There is something different about being in person, obviously. But yeah, the virtual options are, to your point, have been lifesavers. Family connection. We're 16 months out of being able to see my father-in-law, who's going to be 95 this year. And we want to get up there and we want to see him, hence vaccination and things of that nature. But we've been able to do Zoom calls with him, and he just loves being able to see everybody, and it's just been great for him.
I'm glad to hear that. It has been great. At first, it was kind of weird, but I'm learning to love it. At least half my business now is virtual, and it's cool because you've been doing this for a long time. It's newer to me. I only did it if a person was out of state or couldn't come to me in person, but now it offers up. You can serve anybody in the world And, with decent audio and video, not a whole big investment, got some lighting, you can present a really high quality service. The sky's the limit. I'm looking forward to continuing this for my business, at least, even when things open back up in a bigger way.
I think people are going to expect it. I expect moving forward that what's going to happen is, and you can pin this to a gym or you can pin this to a personal training service. I expect that people are going to look at their schedule and they're going to go, I can make it in twice this week and I'm going to do one online.
Yeah.
Or that may flip the next week where I'll do two online and I can only make it in once. And people have realized that home is an option, that you can make this work, but yet group exercise has been one of the dominant trends in fitness for like the last 20 years, plus years, which means it's no longer a trend. It's a set thing, hopefully. But it's because of the interaction. It's because of that group nature. And we crave that. Not everybody wants personal training, but they want group interaction. And within a class setting, that becomes things like, Bob and Jane, where have you guys been? You've been loafing and not doing your training, and we were on vacation. Blah, you get the back and forth, but that somebody was like, hey, they noticed Bob and Jane weren't there, and so it's the cheers effect, right? And you want to go where everybody knows your name, and there's a lot to that.
Oh, I love it. Again, being part of a community, right? That's a huge element. Our motto at our gym, Existence Athletics, is education, adventure, community. And those are important to us, right? Education, doing things right. Adventure, we're very outdoor focused. And community, we're all in, again, it's group classes, but it's also group events. Before things were closed down, we would have, chili cook-offs, we'd have snowshoe trekking, hiking. I do the winter camping and split boarding, got the split board right there. Yeah, it just whatever it takes to get outside and have fun, right? That's our MO. And community, like your point. Yeah,
definitely.
Well, strength aerobics. Let's talk about this for a second. The term didn't make sense to me. Then I watch your videos. Can you speak a little bit about that? And is there something to look forward to from you?
Yes and yes. I am putting together an ebook that covers strength aerobics. I'm actually fiddling with a different name for it. So we'll see where I end up on that. But if you talk to an exercise physiologist, they are going to balk at the idea of strength and aerobics being put together.
Right.
So there's some other concepts. There's a concept called general endurance and potential productivity that I think more accurately represent what you're getting out of a protocol like strength aerobics. And for those of you that don't know, there was an article by Pavel and Alexei Sinart in 2014, I believe, that kind of introduced this. And it was, a clean, a press, a squat, set the bell down, shake it off, a clean, a press, a squat, set it down, shake it off. And so I've used this sort of protocol for quite a few years. And what happened after, in coming back into training after cancer treatment, was I realized pretty quickly that I actually needed to rebuild my strength in order to be ready for my ballistics. And it's easy to pick up the bell and start swinging. But again, producing power, tissues may not be ready for it. I'm able to overload certain areas. And so strength aerobics allowed me to build my general endurance and potential productivity to a pretty high degree. I'm knocking off some sessions now that I, prior to cancer treatment, when I used strength aerobics as an occasional thing, I would kind of limit myself to about 30 sets, and I would do either an on-the-minute sort of strategy, or I wasn't really embracing everything that I think it can provide. What I started to do as I got back into my training was I started to, I did what I could. My first session, and this is going to sound like I'm, braggadocious and whatnot, but I started back at the 24 kilo. But for me, that was more than half reduction in, I was used to training with the 48 a little bit with the 56. And so I was doing some pretty heavy training.
Yeah.
And so for me to start over at the 24 was like, this is the first bell I owned. Like I literally, like, this is the first bell I own. You can have it when you pry it from my cold, dead fingers. And so starting back at the 24, and it felt heavy, but that progressed pretty quickly. And so now I'm back up to doing 50, 60 sets of and that's total, it's 25 or 30 each arm, 50, 60 sets of whatever strength aerobics or protocol that I choose for that day. And I am very much an intuitive trainer. I've joked about this on several podcasts, and I've joked about this for a long time. Nobody sends me programs to experiment with.
Nope.
Because I know I'm not going to follow them. I'm going to tweak, adjust, change, or just not follow the program. And so that leads to some funny conversations with Pavel and some other folks who are like, "Didn't you try that?" I'm like, "Come on, you quit sending me programs like 5 years ago because I'm not going to follow." So I'm just very intuitive in my training. I literally, and I'm going to train here shortly after we finish the podcast. I will sit down with my notebook and I'll think through some options. And there's one that will get me a little fuzzy, like either like, "Ooh, that's a challenge," or "Yeah, that sounds good and that's what I'll choose for the day. I've fielded a bunch of questions on social media where people are like, "Well, what's your plan?" I'm like,
Gotcha. Gut plan.
I'm going to do work.
Yeah.
And that's really about as simple as it gets. And I have, there is a little, and explained in the ebook that I'm working on. But there is a method to the madness basically, but it's a lot of intuitiveness to my training. And I just enjoy that more. I don't know. It's just how I roll.
I like the intuition a lot better. I got my mirror right there with my plan on it. And then I recently went through this, and it's like almost the opposite. There's a lot of detail and structure.
My brother from another mother, Fabio Zonin, he is the analytical scientist.
Yes.
He is precise. He is detailed. I am not.
Ditto.
And so when we sit down and talk about training, I mean, I love, respect, and understand what he's doing. But for myself, I'm just a very intuitive trainer. We were talking about some SFL prep and things like that. And I have my strategy, which is a little more intuitive. And he has his strategy. And, it was just a funny conversation because we were obviously on opposite sides of this, but both paths will get you there.
Yes, they will.
And identifying which you are and how that can help your training is also something I talk about in the ebook.
Perfect. In the ebook, when do you think this will be available?
Oh God.
Sure.
Do you remember the movie The Money Pit?
I have not seen that. No.
So classic Tom Hanks. So basically they get this deal on this house and discover very quickly why they got a deal on it. And so they get this contractor crew to come in, and the guy, the lead of the contractor crew says, he's like, "Oh, how long is this going to take?" Guy says 2 weeks. Well, this is like a 5-year process. It's this unbelievable. It's funny. So anyway, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So for those of you that have seen The Money Pit and understand the 2 weeks reference, it's 2 weeks, which means as soon as I can get it done.
Fair enough. Well, not to add more pressure, but I'll look forward to it in about a little over 2 weeks.
Exactly. We'll get there.
We'll get there. Did I hear a made-up word earlier?
More than likely.
I think so. I really appreciate about this. The last podcast, Chris and Mike, you brought up a word, oxymoronics. That was pretty good word. Yes. So you have a tendency for this neologistical word creation. And was it braggalicious or braggadocious that came in there?
Something like that. I don't even remember half the stuff that I make up. So, and that's it. It's a problem when you're filming because you'll do, well, let's run that again. And I'm like, well, it's coming out different.
Yeah, we're winging it. I hear
Not
you.
sure what I said last time, but we'll do it again. This one might be better. Who knows?
I love that. That's funny. I do a lot of YouTube videos for the gear reviews with Engearment, and I don't have a script. People are like, do you have a script? I'm like, no, why would I have a script? I'm just winging it. It's 80% correct. It's good enough.
Right. Yeah. I have this thing. I like this thing. Do you want to know about this thing? Here's a thing.
It's $5. Here's how much it costs. Here's a link. Enjoy. I'm going to go walk my dog.
Exactly. Yeah. I try to be now. I on the flip side of this, I'm also actually very good at outlining for like a video shoot that uses a teleprompter and things like that. So I can go either direction that you want to go. But from like a teaching standpoint, let's have fun.
Yes. It comes through, right?
Yeah.
It's fun.
I don't know. I just, if I'm not laughing, I'm not learning. Mm-hmm. So, certainly I suffer through some continuing ed for like my athletic training cert and things like that. And I'm always, I don't judge people, but boy, I judge presenters. And, so, I'm always, engage me, like make me laugh, get me involved, even if it's virtual. Mm-hmm. You still got to be able to do that.
Absolutely. That's great advice. And one of my tools to entertain people is my wife will often demonstrate for the group classes like this afternoon, and she'll come in here and there's some banter. The dogs show up and making it fun, because why not? Why not make it fun? It can still be educational, helpful, and serve their needs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Still just talking about swinging weights around, right?
Oh yeah.
Like in the end, we're still just, I had a baseball coach on the MLB level who said, I'm pretty sure today we're going to throw a ball, we're going to catch a ball, and we're going to try to hit a ball. So let's go do that.
Yeah. I love it. It's like classic John Madden. I think whoever puts the most points on the board is going to win the game.
Oh, I can't think of John Madden without thinking of Frank Caliendo, who does a brutal Madden impersonation. Madden does not like Frank Caliendo's impersonation of him, but Caliendo might be one of the most talented impersonationists. There's another made-up word around. He's amazing. There's a special on, I think it's an old TBS special that you can find, and he's literally switching characters like every second or third word. And he physically changes in his mannerisms and how he acts every second or third word in this diatribe, and it's amazing.
I'll look into that.
And I think it's just stray topic, but I think there's a book called Plato and a Platypus Walk into a Bar, and it's philosophy and comedy, and how those two things mix. Groucho Marx, actually a great example, and I paraphrase and use this all the time when I teach. Groucho had a joke where he said, "These are my principles. If you don't like them, I have others." And, I always joke that, these are my opinions. If you don't like them, I have others. Yeah.
I get that. That's so
that kind of philosophy comedy sort of blend. And I think from a presentation standpoint, studying comedy, studying comedians, very valuable for timing, intonation. Humor is a funny thing. There are, and we all have met them, and we have them in our families, people who think they're funny and they're not.
Yeah.
So if you're going to try to use humor as a teacher, as a presenter, make sure you're actually funny.
Yeah. Practice your
yeah. Before you do that.
That's good advice. Well, you've given me a lot of neologistical awesome words. I have one that you might enjoy, and feel free to use it as much as you want to. Froak, as in past tense of freak out. You froke out last night.
I'm in.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. I've been saying for like 2 decades.
I'm in. I have froak many times before.
Heck yeah. It's going to happen again.
Or I guess that would be froked.
You froked out.
Froked out. Yeah.
Oh, you give me 5 at least, maybe more in the conversation. So I owe you at least 1. Oh, that's good stuff. Well, this is great. I look forward to your book in 2 weeks to 5 years.
Correct.
Strength Aerobics. And then your class in May, I will put a link to that. That is a fundamentals course through StrongFirst.
We're calling it Foundations.
Foundations. Gotcha. Is it a 1 day or 2 day?
It's a 1 day. It's a kind of like a small little buffet of what we do within StrongFirst. So you're going to get a little body weight, a little barbell, a little kettlebell. Oh. And you're going to get just kind of a little sampling, and but yet still very transferable skills and things that will enhance anybody's practice. But it gives you that opportunity to come in, sample a little bit, take away some knowledge that you can apply in various areas, and then come back for more.
Oh, and they will. I've been through each of the SFB, SFL, and SFG, and they're all very applicable. And it's so cool you guys are combining the simple or a bit of them in that 1 day course. That's really a good idea.
Yeah. Fabio. Gotta throw him a little plug there. He's the guy that kind of said, we should do this. I was like, brilliant. Let's do it.
Exactly. Oh, that's awesome. I'll put a link to that below. And where can people find you, Brett?
StrongFirst.com. What is my Insta? Brett Jones SFG, I think is the, I don't even know. Just Brett Jones on Facebook, or Applied Strength on Facebook. And I have a Twitter account. I don't use it. I should probably change that.
Yeah. I know I have one, but
I don't know. I feel like tweeting, I would have to come up with something meaningful to say on a regular basis. And that just feels weird. Like I'm trying to pontificate on a regular basis. And I don't have many pontifications that would be beyond do the work, take the next step. Like they'd be pretty short tweets.
You know what? You're really good at the short answer. I love your replies on social media. It's excellent. It's like 1 word answer. It's like, and this is a very good concept. I hope everybody grasps. My uncle says, I would have written you a shorter letter, but I didn't have time. Right? Yeah. So
exactly.
Simple, right to the point, nothing more needed. And then, yeah.
I'm going to have to look it up, but there was a couple of the classic authors who were pontificating on the idea of simplicity and reducing. And so one of them had put out there, simplify. And the other author came back with, 1 simplify would have sufficed.
Touche.
Exactly. So I think that, and this in reference to putting a project out there, like an ebook or something like that, which I've threatened to do for many years and never pulled the trigger on. There are times where I feel like I can say something in such a short manner that it's not worth putting down into a project like this. A, I have to get over that, and B, yes, you can pull that and expand it a bit. And so I think that if I recognize that for myself from a work and productivity standpoint, and there's probably people listening who have hesitated on various projects because they feel like it's not worthwhile, or they can't pull it out into something.
Oh, sure.
Give it a try.
Exactly. And I can attest to this too. I have a book right there I wrote, and it's not the best book, but it's the only book on splitboarding, and number 1.
There you go.
Yeah. And like it was an ebook, and has a lot of YouTube videos and links to go other places, and it's fun, but it's not the world's best book. But again, just get it done. Just start, get it done. I know a lot of great people have great ideas, and they just keep punting the ball further and further down the field and never start. But you also write great articles too. Like you have an abundance of amazing stuff out there.
It's funny, and this will again sound perhaps braggadocious, but there are a lot of times when I answer a question on social media that I just link to an article that I've written on.
Why not? Yeah.
Because we talked about that. Here it is. And I think that and this is something I battle from a social media standpoint, from a productivity standpoint. And I've already said it, so it's hard to say it again.
Yeah.
But everybody didn't hear it the first time. And there's somebody that's new to this who needs to hear that for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that willingness to, at a certain point, be repetitive, but at another point, just provide the information that people need, is something that I'm still working on as a professional.
Well, it's very humble of you to say that. But there's a big takeaway, though, is you can create content that's evergreen, right? You can repurpose it and reuse it because it was so good and it's so effective. You can just link to it. Yeah.
Working on it.
Yeah, I know. Me too. Every day I create new content. I'm like, I think I did that 3 years ago. Why do I? But, things get better. Techniques get better.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, Brett, this has been an absolute blast. You've given me over an hour of your time. Is there anything you want to leave the listeners and viewers with?
Actually, you made me think of something. Stephen Pressfield, who is a fantastic author. If you've never read any of Pressfield's books, he tended to write more historical narratives. So he has a book called Gates of Fire, which is about the Battle of the 300, the Battle of Thermopylae. So if you want to step away from the graphic novel version and read we'll say truer historical narrative on that fantastic book, Tides of War, about the Peloponnesian War, books on the Afghan campaign, lots of great books. But he also has a book called The Art of the War of Art.
Oh.
And it's about creativity and work, and so that's a good one. You made me think of that I need to go back and take a peek at. Things to leave people with: have fun, take the next step, do work.
I love it. Have fun, take the next step, and do work. That's great. I love it. Last it was you live till you die from your grandmother.
Yes.
That's also
still a profound one that knocks around in my brain quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, Brett, it is always a joy. You have a lot of wisdom and you improve a lot of people's lives. So thank you for all that you do. We all appreciate it. Thank you. It's humbling and honored to hear that. And I appreciate it. And, we're all battling things that nobody else knows about. And 100%. Have fun, take the next step, do the work. Yes. Couldn't say better. On that note, until next time, Brett. Awesome. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Engearment.com viewers, listeners, YouTube subscribers. This was Brett Jones. I have all the links below for all the great resources he provided and the books at the end there too. Until next time, take care.